The sun is in gate 31 and the earth is in gate 41.
Mm, the unexpected.
Yeah. So here we can see it on the body graph, which is pretty fun. So we've moved ahead like quite far from like where we began. And so we continue on in this like counterclockwise motion. So we can see up top the 41 with the earth in this energy of contraction, and the 31 is influence. And so the first time in a couple of weeks, because we've been a lot of root center, and it's finally shifted into root and throat.
Mm, yep. Well, I'd just like to point out they're both collective, and that'll come in handy in a moment.
Oh, it's a good thing to know. Yeah. So
Yep.
the sun in gate 31, this is this gate of influence, the law of friction, whether passive or active, that engenders transference and thus influence. It's a throat gate. As Danny said, it's collective. So in it's collective, we think sharing as the main keynote. And it's part of the understanding, it's the logic circuitry within that collective circuitry. Its partner is gate 7, which is the role of self in interaction. And the 731 is this channel of the alpha. I oftentimes hear this as this channel of like democratic leadership, whereas like the 7 is like the people working behind the scenes kind of a little bit, and like the 31 is that like democratically elected leader. So I'm kind of curious to learn a bit more about this. And then the overall is gate 31 provides the vision for a new direction and shows others how to achieve it rather than doing it for them. Voice of I lead is only heard if backed by the majority. What do you have to say on that?
Well, the voice of I lead is they are dying to come out regardless of if the majority agree or not. And it's a healthy energy for them. So it's always about knowing the timing. And there's two types of timing with I lead. There's I lead because it's obvious. And then there's the I lead when it's not obvious. And the Democratic majorities, the sort of helpful sharing. In other words, this needs to be shared. And if no one's sharing it, all the energy for it is not there. It's a non thing, and it wants to look into the future as it relates to putting things together. The I lead is for the collective. It's for the practical art of sharing. And I was just noticing as you're talking about its companion gate, gate 7, its polarity on the other side. Think about it. Gate 7, this whole rising up of the people, letting the people know it's part of the Sphinx. So it's saying, hey, we're sharing because we intimately know a direction into the future, and that sharing is empowered by one thing. So it really can't be corrupted. Only the not self will corrupt this in its purest form, like in a child. It is driven by the vessel underneath. The vessel empowers the direction. That's why the Sphinx and the vessel have always gone together. So this is an amazing influence. And by the way, when you're in the influence business and it's dealing with the people, unexpected things happen.
Yeah, I have a friend who has an undefined throat, but has gate 31, and he's also the cross of service. So he always ends up being the one who's like, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to take the lead on this. Someone's got to help and make this happen. And it's very impressive to see that with the 31 is the only throat gate that he has.
Yep, I lead or not.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
These
Following
voices
that.
are literal out of the throat. They are literal. You listen to the keynotes of those voices. That's the voice that comes out. You can flesh it out, but you should go around the throat and look at every voice that comes out. The activations you have, those are your voices.
I have no activations on my throat, so I have everyone else's voice coming through.
Yep. And then there's that. Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, we have the Earth in gate 41. This is the decrease. This is the gate of contraction, the limitation of resources, which maximizes the development of potential. It's a root gate. It's also part of the collective sharing gate, but the sub-circuit, it's part of the sensing and the abstract circuitry. The last one was part of that logical circuitry that relates to the spleen, and the 41 is abstract, relating to the emotional solar plexus. The 41 connects to gate 40, which is the clinging fire. It's a very passionate energy. And then the 4130 is the channel of recognition. So gate 41 drives you towards satisfying your desire and fulfilling your destiny, both of which rest in the hands of the fates. 41 holds the potential for all human experiences, but releases or initiates only one at a time. So I know the 41 is also that start codon, right? This is what's gonna.
It's the start codon. So this is what pumps humanity's starting point for its genetic process over and over and over again. And what it says is humanity is an experiential process because this is the experiential stream of awareness that moves through the solar plex center, and so it's profound inside of us. And something else about this 41 is when it's by itself, it doesn't know there's a clinging fire on the other side. Even in the profile that are the transpersonal, where they're supposed to look across and see that, yeah, it has an idea, but the 41 all by itself, isolated, it lets out one at a time, not necessarily knowing what the clinging fire. That's why the fates, the 30 doesn't know what's going to be given it. And the dang fates sometimes get in the way because 41's like, well, I don't know what you need, but I'm giving it. And one of them will lead because 41 is such a powerful thing. And so the being with these two gates has to recognize, channel of recognition, what they're recognizing as it relates to this whole process is this beautiful process of, oh my God, I don't get to know. And when it surrenders to that, it gets all the ones that it will come to know. So everything works out that way. And it's all this basically recognizing that you don't get to know. There's that limitation choke point for you to focus on in your experiment and realize it's not a choke point. It's just a point. um, I wanted to say all that because when you were reading, I was like, this is a beautiful gate.
Oh, I
It's a
love it.
beautiful
Everything you just said. It was
41, and it's very earthy, right? So it's we're now grounded in the starting of this process that drives all human experience, and it's an adrenalized pressure to let out the capacity to fantasize, to go necessarily anywhere in your mind, to have a hunger in you to want to start something new. Really, that 41 talks to that 53 a lot. They're both one formats the other to start the thing. I'm sure 41 would like to finish it, but down at the bottom, it's where it's emptiest. And so it does get hungry. And when it gets all the way up to the top, to the 30, as it goes through that stream of awareness, that 35 at the throat, it terminates at, okay, I'm full. Been there, done that, until it empties back out and starts back at 41. That's this experiential process, filling up and starting over. So it's always something new or something else coming out as a desire out of this desire for new experience and change. It's amazing. Adrenaline too, and it must be shared.
It's so interesting with like the 41 coming from this place of decrease, of contraction, right? Of almost
Mhm.
this place of lack and having that creativity, that imagination, that fantasy, that adrenal drive for something new from this place of contraction and decrease, from this place of like almost like tightening, right? It's contracting, and from that place of less of limitation of resources, that's the limitation of resources which maximizes the development of potential. It's like, what is it, the mother necessity is
It's
the mother of
it's
invention.
MacGyver.
Yeah.
All of MacGyver could be called Gate 41 in a way because it was
Hmm.
always a new experience, and it's like I've got a matchbook and a jackknife. It's limited resources. Got to build a sail.
But that
So
maximizes the potential, the development of potential. I think that's very interesting that that's so wired into the core initiation factor of humans.
it's an actual practical thing because on a material plane, we always have to build in for the possibility that we're going to have to do that. In fact, the likelihood that we will be doing that plenty, no matter what.
Hmm.
And adrenaline, as it being the functional center, which is called the root center, is our adrenals, that fight or flight. It's always looking for this balance between fear and trust, and it's in a really adrenalized way. So just put adrenaline in there for your keynote of
Hmm.
the meaning of the center, and you recognize adrenaline's only ever meant to be used in spurts.
Hmm.
Everybody knows if you live over adrenalized, you become fatigued, right?
Hmm.
So most of the day is supposed to be spent. We're not supposed to be spent our days adrenalized.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
let
Hmm.
that be a clue as to where gate 41, if you have it in your body graph,
I
can
do.
sometimes go off track. I'm pouring out too much adrenaline on all of this. Talk about a reason to become fatigued. And this is the grounding for the week. We're all going to be grounded in how is it this adrenaline's coming out? Starting in the first line, the foundation. What's it going to mean as it comes out? This has a desire. Humanity's going to desire stuff. That's what's in the weather forecast. And you know what it desires at the end? What is it looking for? Change. is looking for change. There's going to be a lot of adrenaline fuel to find the change of it all,
Mm. And you're
whatever that
saying that
is.
that following of the 41 to the 30 to the 36
Yep.
to the 35?
Yep. Yep. Thank you, by the way. I skipped that.
No, it's fine. I love it. It helps me learn. Cool. So incarnation crosses. So people who are born or in the process of being born this week. First up, we have the right angle cross of the unexpected. People with the inherent power to attract the collective's attention who become our unexpected leaders or heroes. Their nurturing influence is discovered and acclaimed in the midst of the unexpected.
Mm.
Then next up, we'll have our juxtaposition people. It's the juxtaposition cross of influence. Naturally influential and consistent people who intentionally use their mental processes, new experiences, and memory in order to persuade others. And finally, we'll have the left angle cross of the alpha. Powerful leaders who impact others by resolving issues of survival on the mental plane. People look to for practical solutions that secure the future.
That mental plane is important in this movement. So throughout this week, this movement will be taking place generally as it relates to specifically that 41 pouring out this desirous energy for new experience and to basically bring experience along, and it hungers. Just put that word hunger to start. Hunger to start is a feeling that you get to have this week. Let it out. And so that's sort of the anchor of it all as it relates to what is it we're doing here. And that 31 is looking for the type of influence that it can say I lead. And it doesn't even know that it wants to, is part of the thing, part of the unexpected. It's as unexpected to them as well. So we get to share in that. I always found this cross to be fascinating because unexpected things happen, but it's about the sharing of how something always coalesces out of it because it's got this gate 31 whose influence leads to something logical taking place. And that's the one thing we all get to talk about together is what's logical. That's the only thing we can end up coming together to understand. And 31 is the epitome of that. So it's unexpected. Let's unexpectedly see a bunch of things get solved this week. That's how I would read that on a
Mm,
mundane plane, just in our day-to-day life. Unexpectedly watch a bunch of things move on their way or get solved this week.
that's cool.
Yeah. Was there another slide? There
There's
is.
the last one. Yeah, there's the one more.
Oh, well, if we're still talking about these gates, and as it relates to the hexagrams that are in them, yeah, do the hexagrams.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So this week, July 24th to July 29th, we have the sun in gate 31, which is this gate of influence, and the earth in 41, which is contraction. What's really fun with these is they're actually like exact mirrors of each other, where for 31, we have lake over mountain, and for 41, we have mountain over lake. And the imagery descriptions of this was really interesting. With gate 31, it's the mountain holding the lake. And it noted the importance of it having the separation of the lake and the mountain, right? It's not like lake and earth, it's not lake and dirt because it would just turn into mud. And so actually having this like separation between the mountain and the lake, between the mountain and that water in order to like hold it up and to separate it, right?
Mm.
um and so it says, the noble one accepts people into an empty space. He ensures that he can hear and receive others without confusing his self with theirs. So
God,
that's
that's the I Ching. Is that the I Ching
the I
language?
Ching. Yeah, this is my I
Oh, yeah.
Ching.
Dude,
And
thank you for bringing that. Oh, bring it each time. Yes.
oh yeah. Yeah, I always try to like take a look at it, but it's really neat because it's that
That's a
idea.
description of influence. Read it again.
Yeah. Uh, the noble one accepts people into an empty space. He ensures that he can hear and receive others without confusing his self with theirs.
The empty space is his first recognition of the need for leadership. It's a channel that has a recognizing energy. It's a projected channel. And the recognition of it, even if everyone recognizes it at the same time, it was an empty space. It gets filled with the voice of this influence.
Yeah, and having that space for others and recognizing
Part of the
having that
influence.
having this space for the other people and then having his exactly, and that like proper influence is acknowledging the differentiation between the two and having the space for the lake and not having it mix up and get all blended up into mud.
And think about leadership in general. The first thing leadership does in this particular case, because it's collective, logical, is it invites everyone else in.
Hmm.
It follows the archetype of a projector theme and just simply invites all the other energy in. It's
Hmm.
perfect.
Right, that mountain holding the lake. And then on the other side with the 41, that contraction, which is the flip of the mountain over the lake. This one is also very interesting because it was saying a noble one, when he gives things up, is not without anger or desires. He just keeps them under control. Solid as the mountain that contains the lake and limits the flow of its waters. Without the evaporating waters, the mountainside would be barren. Without the mountain, the water would dissipate and be lost. Together, they create a complete landscape, emotion sustaining growth in higher experience, and control deepening your emotional capacity.
This whole thing controls the beginning of that emotional process. What 41 puts out is what gets dealt with by the clinging fire, with its fear of fates, its wisdom creating fear of fates, and of fate itself at times. And so I love that. Can you just read the short one-liner again? That is the 41.
Yeah, that like last line of it. Together, they create a complete landscape, emotion sustaining growth in higher experience, and control deepening your emotional capacity.
That control just comes, it's because it is controlled. The 41 limits its adrenal outlay. It limits it for obvious.
Mm,
I am the body. The chemistry of the body says, dude, limit the adrenal outpouring. You just here's the clinging fire beckons something. There's an emotional energy. Let it pull. I don't know what it is, but here you go. And so the 41 says, here you go. I like it. Plus I want this. Plus this is a thing. And it realizes its shape inside the mind, sort of the being, as they recognize I hunger, and they sort of put a label on it somehow. They try to come up with what does it mean, but the clinging fire is what's going to actually give that meaning over time. I love how they describe it. And when I said, can you read it again? No, it's that subheading that goes right after the 41.
41, decrease, contraction, the limitation of resources which maximizes development of potential.
Mm. That's the translation of what the I Ching was saying.
Hmm.
Think about how that distills what was in the I Ching. God, it's such poetry. I don't even know what to
Hmm.
say about that. So, by the way, the things you hunger for and the influence you ultimately will have isn't about your influence and your hunger. It's about how it is shared and who it is with. Because
Mm,
both these energies require sharing is not an option with collective gates and collective channels. It's not an option. Unshared is unrealized.
yeah, it's just what is.
Right. And so the sharing of this as you're out in the world today, if you're feeling this energy and you want to spearhead something, fill the empty void with the people by inviting them. Now you get to know this is like a key into this week. You can keynote it with invite whatever you want on the things you wish to lead to fulfill the feeling that seems to be hungering for so that you can go ahead and see if it worked or not, you know? And if it didn't, you got a whole week, do it again or not. Have fun with it. This is a little scalpel into breaking open what this week is that you can go ahead and operate on your own self. I think it's pretty cool.
I think it's great. This is great. I feel really good.
Anything else you would like to say about what people could look forward to this week as they experience this week with this driving force of the sun and this grounding attraction of the earth?
Yeah, I love the things that you brought up. I would say with like the 41, right? And like grounding in that, it's like that maximization of potential by contraction. So maybe those places where we might think that things are a little tight or a little contracted or a little, maybe even annoyed, right? That like something is in a place of limitation and where we can maybe be creative about it and have some imagination about it and see what kind of stirs up in us, right? It's like a little kid, you get them a toy, they don't care about it as much as they care about the box. So like
Right.
where are those ways that we can like find some fun or some creativity in what is available, and the creativity that comes from having less available. You get to be more fun with that. And then, yeah, seeing
Want
how.
less. Go ahead and want less, have less in a way. Like, see the lessness of this one little aspect is sort of what you're saying.
Yeah, and like the imagination that comes from it, just like have fun with it, be creative, see what comes up from that kind of place, and then how that comes into a place of creative sharing and leadership.
Mm, I think that's cool. So it's now it was the sun that was the 31, right? Yep. So that's automatically going to throw that desire